Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why.
We may have a little bit of rain a little later, but it is what it is in terms of us dealing with the incremental weather, as they say. May have another little cool front coming through, but nothing like last week. So because of that, we got the coolest guy, coolest cardiology I know, that we've had on this show in the past. So we want to welcome Dr. Trevor Green back to our
Thank
show.
you.
Dr. Green, how you doing this evening?
Good. Doing well. Doing well. Happy to be here. And of course, Tyrone reminded me that this is Heart Month. So
Right,
this program is very special.
very
Mhm.
special. And of course, we always have our behind the scene guy, Dr. Well, he think he is, Mr. Tyrone Jackson, our
Tyrone,
technology specialist. He's a doctor of technology, is what he is.
right?
Uh, got his PhD in technology.
Mhm.
Tyrone, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, and I'd like to thank you for that upgrade on my professional status.
Too bad money don't come with it.
Yeah.
Well, look, we happen to have you here because you make this possible for us. Ms. Turner is running a little late, but our subject today, for those that have an opportunity to take a look at it, is we try to recognize the silent symptoms that may represent a heart attack that go unrecognized in both men and women. Um, the if I wait for Dr. Green to agree or disagree with me, but it does seem to be more symptoms possible in terms of silent presentation in women than it is in men. Usually, men tend to, that might be like back about six symptoms that present in men. They're kind of obvious, and I'm gonna let Dr. Green talk about it. But in women, it seems to be a bit more well, I don't know what's the word I want to use.
Subtle.
Huh?
Subtle.
Subtle. Yes, I was going to say undercover, but subtle is the right word for it.
Mm,
Seems to be a
mm.
bit more subtle.
Yeah.
So Dr. Green, in your infinite experience of seeing patients dealing with cardiology for whatever number of years, tell me about the symptoms of heart attack, or what should we be looking for as I know what I might be looking for as a provider, but as a patient, as a layperson, let's talk about what kind of symptoms we should look for. We'll go ahead and use men first. Look at men first. One of the
Right.
few times you hear me talk about men being first, but go ahead.
Right. Indeed. Where I would like to start actually in a
Okay.
very layman fashion is it was given to us by none other than Ray Fox himself. Remember the show Sanford and
Yeah,
Son?
yeah, yeah,
And every time Geraldine give him a problem, he said,
yeah,
"Oh, Elizabeth,
yeah.
Elizabeth, I'm coming." Right? And
Okay.
that is heart attacks in men normally produced like that. In essence, chest pain.
Right.
You have frank chest pain, tightening in the chest, gripping. And interestingly enough, the more non-specific it is, the more they can't quite put their finger on where the pain is. Is this dullness, this tightness, this squeeze? Those are some of the terms that patients will relate to you when you see them in the emergency room or when you see them in the office. The more non-specific it is, the more it is related to the heart itself. If a chap comes in and he tells me I get the pain here and he
Right.
can point to it, that is almost certainly not a heart attack. But
Gotcha.
when there's this pressure, this squeeze, this burning sensation, they will say, I have indigestion. In fact, one of our physician colleagues, who is a kidney specialist, literally died because he was not paying attention to his heartburn,
Wow.
popping pills, and when when as you would use the term, when the shit hit the fan, he
Right.
had a massive heart attack. So one has to pay, as in males, one has to pay attention to chest pain. One has to recognize that this is what is common in men. No, contradistinction to women, and we'll discuss women in a whole other category when we get our host on board. I'm sure she would like to go in that direction.
Right.
But chest pain is something that has to be addressed up front. You shouldn't sweep it under the carpet. And when I interview men in the office talking about chest pain, it's always good to have the wives or spouses or significant others in the room, because this is when you get to do a Paul Harvey. You hear the rest of the story.
Sure. I love snitches. You don't get snitches in my office. I love snitches because when they come in, they tell the whole story or tell the rest of the story. Let me
The
put it
rest of the story.
They
Yeah.
tell the rest of the story. Miss Turner, happy you can join us. We were just beginning to discuss the symptoms of heart attack in men versus women. And Dr. Green started out with men first. But before we proceed, how you doing today?
Busy but good. It's been a
Okay.
busy day, I should say, but I'm doing well. Hi, Dr. Green. How are you? Thank you for coming on.
Indeed. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm used to your wife being on so that I can hear how you really are doing, Dr. Green.
Another snitch.
We were just talking about snitches. Oh my Lord.
Well, listen, this is one of my favorite subjects, Dr. Green, because I know, having paid attention to the data, that heart disease, no matter how much conversations we have about it, people still struggle, and it still remains as either number one or number two leading cause of death. It changes between cancer and heart disease every year, but still it's either or. So it's, one of the second leading causes of death in the United States. And tell me if I'm wrong, Dr. Green, but so much of it is preventable.
Absolutely. And that is what I was going to add. The advantage that heart disease, if you can speak in terms of advantages, has over something like cancer is that we have cures. We not only have cures, but we have prevention, which is very important. So prevention is always better than cure. And there are things that we can do. There are things that we can offer. There are things that we can recommend, both the men and women, to get a head start and be very preventative. But it is in a world that gives us a lot of pushback, a lot of competition, a lot of stress. There are the diet issues, there's the weight issues, there's the diabetes issues, there's the over issues. And now there's a whole new paradigm of issues which comes with a very simple word: stress. We're in a society as it is now, and I don't want to get too political, but the level of stress that we're seeing inflicted upon us is tremendous. And that stress is a serious precursor to not having a body that is in full karma, and is in that setting that you can have heart disease being more fulminant than it normally would.
It's funny you say that, Dr. Green, because I was just having that conversation with someone earlier. You pay attention because you want to stay informed about what's happening in society. However, I found for me, it's been very stressful. And I don't want to worry about it. And I do a pretty good job with managing my stress. I was telling someone, so I've been praying a lot. It seems like more often than usual. But it's because I don't want to be overcome by things that are happening. And so I say that, and I'm glad you said that, because people have to know the association between chronic stress and chronic diseases.
Correct.
And if you don't manage one, it unfortunately can impact the other. So as a female, though, Dr. Green, I never understood fully why is it that women are more likely to delay seeking care, and what type of symptoms if that women typically have that may look like a heart attack is occurring?
Now, when you say seeking care, you're obviously referring to heart-related issues because
Correct.
women
Yeah,
tend
I'm
to be
sorry. I
more.
kind of switched. I transitioned. Right. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. King.
Yeah, and that's quite all right. The reason I would say that women don't seek that care is twofold. Number one, the majority of physicians that they will see are in fact men, and men might not necessarily, as physicians, might
Mhm.
not necessarily pay the same attention to the disease, the symptoms that most women will present with when they're having heart disease that they don't recognize or don't understand. And to that end, we have a very interesting situation, and I don't make any money from them. Don't I hope the audience don't get me wrong. I don't work for them. But one of the beautiful things about the Baptist healthcare system is that it is populated by what is now the largest number of women
Women physicians.
physicians in cardiology in the state. So
Mm.
I don't know if the CEO will give me a shout out at the end of this. I know him very well. But it caught my eye that they have spent a lot of time investing in women in cardiology, and to that extent, I too in our practice, Baker Gilmore, looking to make sure that we get a woman back into our group. So that's the first. That's the first thing, Justin. Is that who you're talking to has to
Mhm.
be the woman that is has to be au fait with the peculiarities that women present, and by that I mean they are not going to present in the way that men present. And as I said at the very beginning, the way to remember it is the Sanford and Son, uh, you know, Elizabeth, I'm coming, and chest pain. Women don't present like that. So to
Mhm.
get to it, women will present with simple things as just tiredness. Just
Mhm.
can't make it through the day. They're just tired. Don't quite
Mhm.
know why they're tired, but they're tired. They present with non-specific symptoms like headaches, just weariness, fatigue. Those are symptoms, early symptoms that we have to pay attention to when women offer them up to us. Not being able to sleep properly at night, worrying about the kids, worrying about the house, too many stresses. Those are the kind of background symptoms that you have to pay attention to when you are looking at coronary artery disease, heart attacks in women. Mhm.
And
Yeah,
of
but if you're
course,
going to the
go ahead.
but if you're going to the doctor on a regular basis and you are paying attention to your numbers and your numbers are indicating that everything is managed, should you still worry about having a heart attack?
Yes, you do. You do indeed. And that is where the techniques of listening as a physician becomes very important, and listen and look and try to call out the subtleties of the presentation. So the woman with heart disease will never walk in. No, I shouldn't never say never, but will least likely walk in and tell you that I'm having chest pain. Indigestion is a very common thing, and they for the most part being overweight. And notice I didn't say obese. Being overweight in of itself is a marker that you can pick up as soon as the patient walk into the room. And then once you have that air of suspicion, then there are other things that we can do to drill down on why a woman might be a candidate for a heart attack. Mhm.
I have, as a primary care, everybody know I'm a primary care physician, but most people do. As a primary care physician, I, tend to be on the front line and look at some of these people when they're coming in. And of course, I utilize the experts at my disposal to help, hone down on some of what's going on. But I do tend to see where women tend to come in and downplay chest discomfort
Mhm.
and saying I just keep having this heartburn. I keep having this indigestion.
Mhm.
And, especially when they don't have a precipitating factor, but have heartburn or indigestion. They just it occurs not in relationship necessarily to what they ate or have not eaten or something along that line. And so what I tend to, they tend to really downplay a heart attack. Now, like I said before, they do tend to come to the doctor and want to, take care of themselves more. But for whatever reason, they are a lot of times in denial as it relates to having heart-related symptoms or the possibility that their symptoms are, are from maybe, threatening heart attack or associated with a heart attack or heart-related issues. So a lot of that, and then what Trevor was saying, sometimes these male physicians, particularly ones that are not looking like us, sometimes they will tend to downplay the women when they are coming, talking about, especially at the emergency room. You can take and studies have shown, you can take a white woman and a black woman, exact same symptoms. All right. The white woman is more likely to be evaluated for a heart attack. The black women are usually downplayed to saying like, well, yeah, it's probably indigestion and so on and so on. So you have a greater number of white women being screened, but you have a greater number of actual heart attacks that occur in the emergency room by black women because they're not being, attention is not being, they don't take them seriously enough.
Right.
Of course, in most of the white
So how
males.
do we help the individual then tell the difference between indigestion and heart disease or heart attack though? The average person doesn't know the difference. Right.
So the average person can ask a very interesting question. Doc, do you think it could be my heart? To spur on the conversation.
Right.
And that is in a non-aggressive, non-threatening way. Yeah, I am a little concerned. I had a friend at church and she felt like this, and lo and behold, she had a heart attack. As opposed to trying to be argumentative or aggressive about it, be inquisitive, and that will take away a lot of the barriers that might get set up in another group that have a lot of problems with this, and the women said that the Hispanics, because Hispanics tend to be a little, I want to say hyper, and so it's easy to say, just acting out. But again, experience in the years will tell you that you sometimes need to step back. But the patient himself, the patient can actually subscribe to this by saying, I think it might be my heart. The other thing that we need to mention that we hadn't mentioned is that the majority, although heart disease is occurring in younger women, the majority of these women are also approaching that nebulous time in their lives called menopause.
Yeah.
And you get all sorts of symptoms that are predicated in that kind of setting. And it is easy to just slough it off and say, the worms that you're getting at night, the cold sweats, all that kind of stuff. Just menopause, talk to your gynae person. And that leads me into a very important topic, and we might have to do this with our gynecologist, Rogers, is hormonal replacement therapy. HRT has taken on an interesting new dimension, and a lot of the biases that we have had and the misunderstandings that we've had about hormonal it's coming back to how these things do full circles.
Yeah.
And it's coming around again. So that is another reason in that menopausal area for women, it could sometimes be very nebulous. Not to say that men don't have menopause as well too, by the way. And there's also another very interesting
menopause
avenue.
Literally menopause.
Well, what you're saying is interesting in that I was going to mention it earlier, but now that you brought it back, a lot of times those night sweats are written off as hot flashes associated with menopause. And so when women come in and start talking to you about it, that's one of the difficult parts, especially if they're just getting they reaching into that menopausal zone.
Window. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the menopausal window. But here's one of the things that really, and this is what I'm gonna throw out there. One of the things that really, these women come back and they say, Dr. Kane, why am I having these night sweats? And I went through menopause already. So they may be like 80 years old or 75 years old, or even as much as early as 70 years old. And say, well, I've already been through menopause. Now it looks like it's coming back again. And so now it becomes a bit more difficult to try to discern, are they truly feeling menopausal symptoms, or are we looking at heart-related issues based on their night sweats or the sweating at night and the particular insomnia and the anxiety associated with it, and so on and so on and so on.
It's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. But I want to say something to you, Dr. Green, and I think I've said it in the past. So, and that's because I can't get past it. I've shared with people when I've been in conferences or having conversations, having these intellectual conversations with peers, that no matter how much I know, my culture still trumps my intellect when I go to the grocery store and when I go to a restaurant, when I choose what things to eat, for example. And I won't tell what one of your guilty pleasures are, because thankfully we had your wife on and she told us before what your guilty pleasure is of the oxtails. So I'm gonna just put it out there, Dr. Green. I'm gonna throw you on, right? So, but one thing that I know we've always shared with people is that you can have things in moderation, right? And I've been a part of conversations and different initiatives with making sure people eat enough fresh fruits and vegetables a day. But there are just some things, and that's, we're all about prevention, but there are some things that unfortunately we didn't choose our parents. And so that family history but in terms of your patients, what are you seeing more? Are you seeing more that the issues that people have are indeed inherited, or are they mostly those things that are based on our lifestyle factors?
Yeah, that's a very important point, because you really can't choose your parents. So that horse is already fled. But what you can do is to modify what your genes are going to express. So by that I mean the choice is still yours. The choice is still within your power to be able to make the right choices, both in diet and in exercise and in the way you comport yourself. I come from a group of people in the islands who live well into the 90s, and they all have one thing that I've finally picked up, that they're just stress free. You know, hey, there's no big problem. They're always willing to tell you a story. They always seem so happy. A hurricane is coming through the islands, and they seem to not have a problem. And there's something, and it's not that they're lackadaisical or insensitive. It is just that they have been able to compartmentalize stress and strain and put it in the proper perspective. And that's what that means. And there's a lot to say for that. You don't get to it by accident. It is something that grows on you over time, and it runs in families.
Yeah.
But the choices of what you eat, because you are who you eat, and what you eat. The important thing here is to make good choices and to make healthy choices, and portions are very, very important.
One thing I would say about our family, just FYI, since we were talking about people from the island, our family tend to cope with stress. We make jokes about everything. We could be at I remember us being at my brother's funeral, and some lady walking up there looking like a hoochie mama, and we're all making jokes about it. And that's at his funeral, because that's how we handle stress within the family. We, you know, it just helps us handle stress, and I can, because that's the way it helps me. I make a joke about it. My stress is relieved.
Yeah. Now we've talked a lot about women. Let's talk about men. And I know I was a little late, so maybe you went down that road already. But I would like to talk about men and ask a question regarding those things that, let's just take sleep apnea, for example. I think there's association if people are not managing their apnea well in terms of maybe using a CPAP machine or whatever the doctor has prescribed, can that be also something that will increase their risk of having a heart attack?
The answer is yes, most definitely. Sleep is huge. We in the medical community has fallen upon that, I would say, within the last 10 to 15 years. We now have specialists, they're mainly pulmonologists, pulmonologists being people who look at the lungs, who specialize in sleep. But sleep, the innocent sleep, it is very, very important that you get a good night's sleep. If you have obstructive sleep apnea, it is very unlikely that you're going to get good REM sleep. Yeah. And in the islands, we used to say not every shutter is asleep. So because you have to get good sleep. And you will know that you get good sleep when you wake up in the morning and feel as though you're rested. If you wake up in the morning and you feel, oh my God, I just went to sleep. What happened? You did not get good sleep. The common denominator that most people felt about sleeping as obstructive sleep apnea is that you have to be obese and you have to be like Don Blocker. You know, remember that guy with a short neck and fat and a big stomach?
Humpty Dumpty is what I used to call them. They look like Humpty Dumpty.
No, that is just one type of sleep. That's obstructive. But sleep apnea, the inability to get good sleep at night, could be very central in location. It's coming from the brain. And it will occur in people who are not obese. They don't have stomachs. They have long necks, but yet they snore profoundly. And I don't ask my patients if they snore. I look over at the wife and I ask them if they snore. Right? And then I ask them if they have pets. And the dog or the cat used to hang out in the room. And when the dog and the cat decide that he's not coming in the room, that's a good marker.
My problem is that dog snore too.
Yeah, that dog snore, you got a problem. So it is something to pay very much attention to because it will inform hypertension. Yeah. It will inform your ability to treat your diabetes properly. Your whole karma will be upset. One of the easiest ways to see it, especially if you're not obese, is when you're driving. So the average guy will pick up a car and drive up to North Carolina when he's in his 30s or 40s and think nothing of it, and he stopped once or twice, and no big deal. You have sleep apnea. By the time you get from Jacksonville to the Georgia border, you're kind of yawning and you're kind of tough, and and it is you're not as slick as you used to be. Yeah. That's the early signs that sleep is a problem. And then because it affects the hypertension, because it affects the platelets, because the blood is not as rich and as smooth and as flowing as lovely as it is, that's a perfect setup for having a heart attack.
One of the things I see in patients with sleep apnea is a lot of times when I look at, I guess the classic look for the Humpty Dumpty that you just talked about, but it can occur not necessarily. It can be very thin people. One of the things I look at is they sit in my office, if they sit in my room for 10, 15 minutes, and I walk up to the door and there's loud snoring. I mean, you just sat down. Correct. And all of a sudden you sleep within 10 minutes or so. Yeah. And that's a good indication that it may be sleep apnea. If you look at more at the back of your eyelids than you do television when you sit up there and it ain't been but 5 or 10 minutes, that's a good indication for sleep apnea. For sleep apnea. I do want to ask a quick question, Dr. Green. Can you tell me if is there an association between sleep apnea and AFib?
Yes. The answer is yes. There is a direct connection between sleep apnea and AFib, and the reason for that is, without getting too technical, is that it increases the pressure within the chest itself. You don't breathe as well. You're not oxygenating properly. When you're not oxygenating properly, you don't have that capacity to feed the heart itself, which needs to be fed just like any other organ. And that heart gets starved of oxygen in that process. And one of the ways that that starvation will show up is the irregularity in the heart rhythm. Extra beats from the bottom, extra beats from the top, but more commonly, the condition called atrial fibrillation, where the top of the heart is fluttering as opposed to beating nice and normal.
I also see that we start thinking about it, since we're talking about it, the lack of oxygenation, proper oxygenation, can also lead to brain-related issues.
Yes.
Anything from memory issues, and because the brain is being starved of oxygen, less like the heart. All your body parts, organs are being starved of oxygen if you stop breathing for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever it may be, depending on the individual. And so that can cause some tissue damage, and then they may see some of the whole AFib related issues because of damage.
So if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Dr. Trevor Green about the silent signs, heart attack symptoms women and men often ignore. Dr. Green, if someone is going to their primary care physician, like Dr. Kane, on a regular basis, at what point should they engage a cardiologist? Is it based on age? Is it based on family history? Or should we just wait until our primary care physician refers us? Or if you just say, hey, I'm over 50 now, I think it's time I should go and add a cardiologist as a part of my medical team. Is there a particular standard regarding that?
Not a particular standard, except that you need a good primary care physician. And I happen to be blessed with referrals from exactly such a person. And it's not unusual for Dr. Kane to send me a patient, and the statement is, I think it is time for you to see a cardiologist. And I would say to them, well, why did Dr. Kane send you here? Well, your mom had this, your EKG doesn't look quite right. You're not behaving properly. Look at that stomach. Those kind of things. And mainly men, by the way, as well as women. But the primary care physician, if there's a good relationship with the patients, has the opportunity to not wait for the what to hit the fan, but to stay ahead of the game. And I have quite a few of my physician colleagues who send patients to me are that preemptive. They are ahead of the game. They don't wait until the penny, the bottom has dropped out. And that's a beautiful thing, because that's what we are all about. We are all about preventative, trying to get in front of the game before the disaster happens. And patients, for the most part, and the ones that I see that comes from my physician colleagues, tend to be very invested in the information that is being given to them by the PCPs, the primary care physicians, and the physician.
Well, the one thing I will say,
and so
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the one thing I'll just relate real quick is that the primary care doc has to be, I don't want to say creative, but they got to be very encompassing of the possibilities of what could be going on. For instance, we have the sleep apnea. If somebody's diagnosed with sleep apnea, they need to go see the cardiologist and see what effect this has had or is having on their heart. So automatically, when I get a patient with sleep apnea, they're going to see a cardiologist.
No matter the age of the patient, Dr. Kane?
Doesn't make a difference for me, because there's such a high association, sleep apnea with AFib and some other cardiac related issues. I want them evaluated. And if they get evaluated and everything is good, no problem. Then I don't have to worry about it for a good while. But if they get evaluated, I can't say, and Dr. Green can probably relate to you, how many times I've sent patients to someone, and in his case, to the cardiologist. How many times I sent patients and it was just because they got sleep apnea, and I'm afraid of what may be going on with the heart. And then, sure enough, they test the heart out, and there are some issues with it.
Yeah.
So what about patients with people with diabetes and high blood pressure? A lot of people have high blood pressure. I know we talked about the association between sleep apnea and heart disease. What about high blood pressure, diabetes? Are you at higher risk of having a heart attack if you have diabetes or high blood pressure, Dr. Green?
Yes, the answer is yes and yes. Hypertension has to be properly controlled because the heart has to pump blood against a big force, and that force is what we call blood pressure. And if the heart is working hard and overworking to move things forward, you could understand what that strain will put on the heart itself in terms of what it requires to get the job done. Diabetes, of course, is a given. Almost always, if you are in a group of patients with a high incidence of diabetes, you almost certainly will have a high incidence of coronary artery disease and therefore heart attacks. So those are the two fundamental things that at the primary care level and at the cardiovascular level, the consultant level, that we try to keep under control. Very important. I only just a couple of hours ago, I saw one of my young patients in the 50s who has high blood pressure and a little overweight, and I've been struggling with her. It took her a year to get back to come see me, and she says, well, I just can't get my blood pressure under control. And I said, well, what do you mean? Am I not giving you the right medicines? I'm working with it. The primary care physician is working with it. What could the problem be? And she said, well, it just swings back and forth. And so, okay, well, we'll talk about it some more. And then in the conversation, she said to me a very important question. Well, my blood pressure is good, usually, for the first, second, 2 or 3 days in the week. Coming towards the weekend, it's not as good. And I said, well, what's the problem? Well,
right.
When I take my blood pressure at home, and the blood pressure is good, so I don't take my blood pressure medicine. I said, well, no, you just let the cat out of the bag. Here I am thinking that we're not giving the right kind of medicine, or we're not giving the right dose of medicine. But what you're telling me is something that my mom told me many, many, many years ago. Has high blood pressure, and my mom taking the medicines, and her blood pressure is nice and normal. And then she says to me, well, Trev, why do I have to keep taking blood pressure medicines? My blood pressure normal. Now, so I tell my patients that if you're African American, unfortunately, and if you've gone around the block a few times, well past 50s and 60s, you will have hypertension. It's as simple as that. You just got to admit it. Yeah. And then the task is to make sure that you control that blood pressure as best as you possibly can. We used to talk about 140 over 90, but now we're down to 130 over 80. And if you really want to get ridiculous about it, anything less than 120 over 80, but that is hard to do. I will be quite happy with 120 to 130. Yeah, that's a major achievement.
Yeah,
but it has to be consistent. But doc, I have to take this tablet every day. I really don't like taking tablets. I said, well, that's okay. That's fine. How long does it take you to take a tablet? 1 second in the morning.
Right.
All right. Yeah. But if you don't take that tablet and you mess up those kidneys and you wind up in a dialysis unit, it is 3 to 4 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, or Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Right. What do you want? I would prefer to take one tablet and swallow it down for 1 second than to have to sit in the chair for dialysis. Because
for 5 hours.
For 5 hours. So basically what I'm telling them, make a choice. And I tend to give all my patients a choice. Yeah. And I learned that when the little kid was bothering his dad because he didn't have shoes. Dad got upset one day and said, look, come with me. Took him down to town. I showed him a guy who didn't have feet.
Wow. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Green.
I use it to get people then to pay really good attention to it. I come at it from the other end. Yeah. What are going to be the consequences of not paying attention to the
Mm-hmm.
to the blood pressure. And the same thing holds for diabetes. We are in an era right now where we talk about pre-diabetes, and I cringe when I hear the term pre-diabetes. And the way I try to get around it is I tell my patients I treat diabetes like I treat pregnancy. You're
A
either
little
pregnant
bit pregnant.
or you're not. It's as simple as that. Right? And just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I understand where we as a medical community are going with the concept of pre-diabetes to the extent that you want to get ahead of the game,
Yeah.
Right.
which is the pre. But unfortunately, be some unfortunately we kind of lessen the intensity of which we get, and this is on the patient side, to address that issue, because they will say to me, my hemoglobin is, it's 5.9. I'm just pre-diabetic. The problem is when you figure it out, it is the horse has already left the barn, the damage is already done to the kidneys, eyes, and heart, and everything else, and now we the physicians are playing catch up. So I'm very cautious. I should say, not judgmental, just cautious to warn people that pre-diabetes is not something that you should play with. If your fasting glucose is 110, 115, ring the bell. And the bell doesn't mean that your physician, Dr. Kane, or any of my other colleagues are going to put you on medicines. What he's going to tell you is, see that little tummy you have there? Let's see if we can get that down a little bit.
Right.
That way, when and Dr. Green, if who was a patient of Dr. Rodas, if I can call his name, when I go over to the Soul Food Bistro, instead of getting instead of getting a lot of oxtail, I just eat a little piece of the oxtail. So there are little things that you like that you can do, because at the end of the day, you still have to live. You still want to be comfortable, but
Right.
you can't overdo it. And as I was telling Reggie at the very beginning of this, exercise is huge. Exercise is huge. When you take that aspirin a day, a friend of mine always say, take that aspirin for a mile walk and then take it. Then you'll do much better than just taking the aspirin alone. So exercise is important.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the weight is very important. The skinny you are, the better. And in our African American community, weight is a very important thing. I had again another patient today. I told her, look, you gotta keep an eye on the weight. You know what her response to me was? I keep
My
an eye.
man, my
But
man likes it.
what does my husband gonna hold on to?
Right.
Another woman if you ain't here.
That's what
Hey.
If you dead, he gonna hold on to another woman.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
or
that's-
if you had a stroke,
Yeah.
it's like, well, this is gonna sound a little bit weird to the audience, but hold my leg up, baby. You had a stroke, man. He's going looking somewhere else.
Yeah, the cultural things that we're challenged with. So diabetes, hypertension. Now,
Well,
for people who are listening, I want to get back to that particular heart attack in women that is silent, and there is actually a special name for it called MINOCA, MINOCA. That's a myocardial infarction in non-obstructive coronary artery disease. Okay, a lot of words. Let me explain to the audience in very simple terms what that means. It means that you particularly in women who get this disease, they get their heart attack. They're relatively young, and by young I mean 30s to 40s to 50s, and there is really no significant blockages in the arteries when guys like myself take them into the hospital and do the heart test. You see that which is called the heart catheterization, where we put dye in and look at none of that. It's very common in women. It's very common in younger women. Usually a higher incidence around pregnancy and all that pregnancy does to the body, pregnancy itself is a pretty powerful stress test. And And these women are exposed to this. They're sensitive to stress again into the time of around getting on to menopause in that area, and it is usually felt to be due to be spasm in the vessel, squeezing and letting go, so that when by the time the doctor comes along and do all the fancy heart tests, the artery looks pretty clean. You see, so there's a lot of work now that is being done to treat this silent form of a heart attack.
One of my friends went to the doctor, Dr. Green, for a routine eye exam, and the ophthalmologist asked her, "When did you have a stroke?" And she was like, "I haven't had a stroke." She said, "Oh yeah, one of your eyes indicate that you had a stroke." And it scared her to death because she said her husband told her, I know she's not listening because she had church tonight, so I'm not going to say her name, but she said her husband, she talked to her husband and said, "Did something unusual happen with me?" And he said, "Yeah, a few weeks ago, you woke up in the middle of the night and screamed." And they blew it off as she was just having a bad dream. So I mentioned that to say, particularly people who have a spouse or a mate, what are things that people should look out for? To me, I've always told people, if it's something unusual, it's something worth mentioning to your primary care physician. If something unusual has happened in terms of a symptom or whatever, but it was so shocking to her, Dr. Green, that when the doctor told her from her eye exam, "You had a stroke." Is that unusual?
Well, it's relatively unusual to the extent that we need a little bit more details on her. Was she hypertensive? Does she have any diabetes? That all the other things that can pile on to make it a problem. So it would be a little hard to cone in.
But she didn't know that she had it. I think that was the unusual part about it. She didn't know she had a stroke.
She was just very lucky. There are some people who can have strokes and recover fully, but that's the exception rather than the rule. And that's fortune, luck, divine intervention, whatever combination of that you might put together.
What she was lucky at was that the ophthalmologist actually noticed something that was ongoing. I want to go back real quick to something. And when I talk to my patients, I tell them there's five major risk factors to predicting a heart attack or at high risk for having a heart attack and even a stroke: smoking, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, a family history of somebody dying before the age of 60 or something, 60, 65 from a stroke or a heart attack. Because a stroke is a brain attack, and it's similar to what heart attack is all about. And then the last one, which is a risk equivalent to having had a heart attack in the past, is diabetes. And I try to make sure people understand that if you got diabetes, if you got a twin, and the only difference between you and that twin is that they've had a heart attack and you haven't, but you've got diabetes and they don't, y'all got the exact same risk for having a heart attack. Try to make sure patients appreciate what that all means to having the diabetes and the smoking and so on and so on.
Dr. Green, thank you, Dr. Kane. Dr. Green, if someone wanted to start improving their heart health this week, what are 3 realistic changes they could make?
Change number 1, take a walk. Walk, move. If you want to stay balanced, it's like riding a bicycle. You got to keep moving. So a sedentary lifestyle is practically a death sentence. Now, when you walk, it's not something that should be strenuous. You should try to do something that you enjoy. If you're under stress to get to the gym to work out, that alone is counterproductive. All you need to do really is to walk in your neighborhood. Keep it safe, of course. There are 2 factors to that. 1, the fact that you're moving, and 2, sunlight. especially at this time of the year when the sun goes down very early. One lacks the ability to get vitamin D naturally. But if you get out there and walk, just the sunlight, and there's research on this. This is not conjectural. You can actually Google literally walk in sunlight and vitamin D, and you'll get a whole collection of different articles that are science based, not somebody's opinion. Because of course, we living in a world now where opinions, everybody has their own, pick up their own facts. You know what I'm saying? But these are well done studies that show that vitamin D that you will get concomitantly when you get out there and you walk in the sunlight, is very good. Walking also forces you to breathe, and we don't breathe as properly as we should, which is why things like chai tea, the exercises and yoga. Spend a lot of time with your breathing techniques. The other thing that you need to do, of course, is to watch your weight. Dieting is very important. I don't like to use the word dieting as much as saying you got to make sure that tummy fat, which seems to be a cultural thing now, is something that you're paying attention to. We know that tummies, with their propensity of fat, raises the chances of having a heart attack down the road. It's a very complex association, but it is there. Yeah, I tell my male colleagues, I'm sure Roger's heard me say this before, that if the males stand up at attention and look down, they have to see 3 feet. If they only see 2, they're in trouble. I rest my case.
Let me say this.
Interesting.
Let me throw this out.
One quick question, Dr. Kane, before one quick question.
Christian right about now, but go ahead.
One point I want you to make, Dr. Green. How often should you walk? Daily? Because there have been different things. 3 days a week, 150 minutes a week. What do you generally recommend?
Yeah, the old literature said that we should walk 10,000 steps a day. That has just been recently revised down to 7,000 steps. Most people can get between 3,000 and 5,000. My response to people, to my patients or anybody who would listen to me, is that 3,000 is better than 0.
Right.
So I'm not picky. Once you get out there and get moving, you don't have to be a slave to a number, provided that you're running up a number of some sort. I encourage my staff here to stand, to walk, to move. You can do a lot. Park not too close to the door of the supermarket. Park down the parking lot. Any little steps that you can do are additive. Now it's easy in this world that we live in because most people have their watches and they can do their timing. But if you elect to do a formal exercise, it has to be stress-free exercise. It has to be something that you enjoy doing. And when you get there, that karma, that flow of endorphins, that relaxation that you get when you do your exercise, that is probably more important than if you do 15 or 20 minutes. When you exercise, you should do 2 things. You should have a little bit of cardio, which means walking on the treadmill. It doesn't have to be fast. It just have to be flowing to your blood supply per se. And then a little bit of weight training, not powerlifting. You're not going to the gym to bench press 400 pounds. That's not important. What is important is reps. Reps at different angles and different forms of your body. That is also very, very important. You're not there to build muscle. You're there to get tone. So
you said there were 3 things, though. You said there were 3 things. I'm sorry. When I asked about 3 things, you said exercise, keep your weight down. What was the 3rd thing?
And the 3rd thing is get adequate sleep.
Okay.
Sleep is very, very important because
Okay.
sleep, and I know this is off the usual beaten things, but
Hmm.
getting good rest to get it back to the sleep apnea we were talking about is also very, very important. The ability to decompress at the end of the day, to be able to regroup and recoup for the next day is so very important. Mhm.
What I was going to relate, Ms. Turner, a couple of things real quick.
Hmm.
Um, One, I think Dr. Green, I know Dr. Green is actually correct in terms of getting exercise.
Mhm.
Try to get as much sunlight as you can. But in today's society, a lot of people, like myself, I walk into the office, the sun is just barely coming up if it's up. And when I leave the office, the sun is going down, particularly this time of year. So
Mhm.
trying to
Hmm.
get to do exercise and walking and stuff like that to improve your vitamin D
Mhm.
deficiency or status is maybe different for some. So sometimes people will go on ahead, some of the physicians will go on ahead and put you on some vitamin D supplementation. And because that's the best we can do at that moment. It is better to go on ahead and do it by way of sunlight. But in today's society and the way work has us
Mhm. Mhm.
trapped into the
Mhm.
office, and you don't hardly see daylight except daylight saving time. What they talking about? Oh, well, anyway, they're talking about changing that. But when you don't hardly see daylight saving time, daylight, then that can become an issue. The other thing is, um, he, I talk to my patients like he just said, and that is, I'm not looking for you to be Arnold or Annette Schwarzenegger. I'm looking for you to do some repetitive type exercises that can get your heart pumping, blood flowing, and lungs moving air in and out. I get that. I'm fine. You don't have to be Arnold or Annette Schwarzenegger. Either one, neither one do you have to be.
Mhm. Agreed. Very good.
Dr. Green, is there one patient story that changed how you practice medicine?
Uh, but I've been practicing for almost 50 years now, so I've seen
Okay.
quite a bit. The if I can pull one out really is I I I would say the most instructive that I've ever had basically was a patient who did not want to follow the rules of what would be normal preventative care.
Hmm.
Uh, had to push on and get a heart transplant, and she is doing very, 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 very well post that, and they've done in terms of coming to the office and understanding that there's a lot that you can do. I did do talks, and they're really into it. They're mainly up north, and that was instructive. Yeah, this to see that we're not beating our heads against the wall. If you do these simple things and they're additive, they can be the cumulative and make up. There's probably to sum it up.
So thank you. And I have to, before we end, I have to talk briefly about emergency awareness. What should people do if they suspect someone is having a heart attack? Should they jump in the car, tell them, push them, bring them to the car and drive them? Should they call 911? How do they determine whether or not it's a heart attack versus, oh, it's just indigestion, I'm going to lay down?
Well, that depends on where you live. We are fortunate in this country, United States of America. We take a lot for granted in this country, unfortunately. This is a blessed country to be in. There is no other country like it. And we can pick up a telephone and call 911, and the cavalry will show up.
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you will get excellent care. The level of service that we get from an ENT service in a community such as Jacksonville is exemplary. Not very many places. Now in Europe, you literally have ENT literally sitting on the corner. But again, Jacksonville is so expansive that that's not practical. So first of all, be aware. Call 911. Most people can get secure within about 9 to 10 minutes in this city. Number two, the most people should be able now, given the level of sophistication that we are at, to understand and know how to deliver CPR, cardiac pulmonary resuscitation, and that's very common in most places of community and social gatherings. There are now defibrillators in airports, in arenas and sports centers, and people know how to use them. It is not a very difficult thing to learn how to do, but more importantly, to keep your cool and not get too emotional about it. That's easy to say for a person who do it on a regular basis. But we have a lot of support systems here that we can use. Mm-hmm. And the EMT service is an excellent one. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Green. As usual, we learn so much from you, and we never have enough time because there are other questions I had. You should see the long list of questions I have for you. I do my homework beforehand. I jot all my questions down I have for you, but thank you so much for joining us. Indeed. We do like to give our guests an opportunity to share any final thoughts of something that maybe perhaps we didn't cover or that you'd like to reiterate before we close out tonight's discussion.
That was for me? I'm sorry.
Yes. Sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, the final thing I would like to say then with respect to the heart attacks and myocardial infarction is that you should establish yourself with a good primary care physician. Be aware that there are things that you can do in your own environment at home to stave off the consequences of a heart attack. Mm-hmm. If you are at high risk because of family, then you pay attention. The things that will get you in trouble would be cigarette smoking, high blood pressure and diabetes. Pay attention to that. And when you get heart pain or chest pain or chest discomfort, just don't poo-poo it, but take it seriously and address the issue. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kane. What are your final thoughts?
Ooh. Well, the quick and dirty part of it would be if you have if when patients come in to see me and I have a suspicion that they may have some cardiac disease, heart disease related stuff, I may issue them some nitroglycerin and then I give them the instruction, since you just mentioned it. I give them an instruction that if you have chest pain greater than XYZ number of minutes, 5 minutes or so, then put one of these nitroglycerins on your tongue. It goes another 5 minutes, put a second one, and another 5 minutes, put a third one, and aspirin, and call 911. Mm-hmm. Not get in your car and try to drive, mm-hmm. or have your cousin mm-hmm. to try to come over and take you to the emergency room. But they're gonna charge me. Okay, fine. They can charge you. They can't get blood from a turnip. If you're dead, they definitely can't get paid. Mm-hmm. So, and you can't get paid anything either. So the best bet is you err on the side of caution, even if it costs you a little bit of money. You err on the side of caution. If you're having those kind of chest pains and symptoms that you think may be related to a heart attack, don't waste time calling your primary care. Don't waste time calling your cardiologist, okay? Because if it's that kind of urgency, it makes you feel like something is going on. You don't have that time to spare. Mm-hmm. You'd rather be wrong and not be having a heart attack than to be right having a heart attack and seek no care, in mm-hmm. enough time. So we want to make sure patients understand, and the people in the audience, go on ahead, do what you feel like. If you're fearful that you may be having a heart attack, and it's urgent like that, just go on ahead and call 911 and go to the emergency room and let them take care of you. Last thing, real quick, is in the daytime where we have all these fast foods, that is part of the big problem. And that's why we didn't have our dietitian here. We usually would have our dietitian. Miss Linda Brown, we usually have them here, but these fast foods are part of the big problem we're seeing with increased risk, I think, for cardiac disease and cardiovascular disease, whether it's heart attack, stroke, yada yada yada. So try to do more cooking at home, as Linda would say. Try to eat more friendlier meals, heart-friendlier meals, fruits, vegetables, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. Less cholesterol-related issues, less fast foods for sure. And then, as Dr. Green says, listen to you, and not because it's me, but listen to you. Go talk with your primary care physician if you have concerns about it. Don't try to just wait and see if you need to go to the emergency room. If you can initially, early on, have concerns about chest pain and issues as it relates to your heart condition, talk to your primary care, make sure they understand that you have those concerns, and then he or she will go on ahead and try to look into it and see what they can find, and or refer you to somebody that's more specialized in what to look for, and that'll be like a cardiologist like Dr. Green.
Thank you, Dr. Kane, and thank you, Dr. Trevor Green, for coming on, joining us. Here are a few takeaways that I'd like for our audience to leave with. Know the silent signs: shortness of breath, jaw, back, or arm pain, extreme fatigue, nausea or dizziness, chest pressure, not always sharp pain. Know your numbers: blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar. Check them regularly, even if you feel fine. Prevention starts at home, as Dr. Green says. Move your body, eat more whole foods, manage stress, get quality sleep, keep routine doctor visits, get you a good primary care physician. I think we heard that a lot tonight. And act fast. If you suspect a heart attack, call 911 immediately. Don't wait. At Pause for the Truth, our mission is simple: to bring real conversations that lead to real change. Thank you for being a part of that with us. Until next time, take care of your heart, take care of each other, and remember, prevention is powerful. Good evening.
We appreciate you spending time with us on Pause for the Truth. Ms. Jocelyn Turner and Dr. Rogers Kane are grateful for your support. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, catch us live on Twitch, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. A big shout out to Tyrone Jackson at Call Tyrone IT Services for keeping us connected. Join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more enlightening discussions. Thanks, and see you next week.